Let's move on now. In yet another killing of a journalist in the Philippines, a prominent journalist was shot dead while driving in the capital, Manila. This is the second journalist who has been killed since Marcos Jr. took office as president on June 30th this year. According to the police, Percival Mabasa was driving his vehicle when two men on a motorcycle approached and shot him twice in the head. An investigation has been launched to identify and locate the attackers who escaped the scene. The police are also trying to determine the motive for the attack. The 63-year-old radio commentator who used his broadcast name Percy Lapid was critical of former Filipino President Rodrigo Duterte, who oversaw a deadly crackdown on illegal drugs, and his successor and the current incumbent Ferdinand Marcos Jr., who is the son of a dictator who was ousted in a 1986 pro-democracy uprising.
Relations between media and the government were not that good under Duterte, and under a Marcos administration we were hoping that it could be a fresh start. But this attack shows that the same conditions that existed under Duterte are still here, and this is a challenge for the new government to show that they do respect press freedom, that they understand the role of journalists, and that they will protect us while we do our jobs.
Media groups and press freedom activists in the Philippines have condemned the killing of Mabasa. In a statement, the National Union of Journalists have emphasized that the killing of Mabasa highlights how journalism still remains a dangerous profession in the country. Echoing similar concerns, Amnesty International has said that this attack on a journalist bears the hallmarks of an extrajudicial execution and an attempt to silence voices which are critical of the government. As we said, Mabasa is the second journalist who has been killed since Marcos Jr. took office in June this year. And according to the Journalists Union, nearly 200 journalists have been killed in the Philippines since 1986, the year that saw Marcos Sr. being overthrown. WION World is One is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.
The A to Z of isms, journalism. Journalism's a product of modern history, and it's shaped by the politics of the places where it works. In liberal democracies, it's based on the ideals that knowledge is important, that expression should be free, and that reliable information is good for society. It's been driven by the invention of new technologies such as paper, printing, electricity, photography, and now, of course, digital, social media, the internet. It's changed radically over time, from medieval scribes recording war and taxes, to paid pamphleteers in coffee shops waging political battles, to mass-market newspapers that use new tech, like trains and telephones, to gather and spread the news, to television and radio that allows us to see, hear and connect with the rest of the world. The BBC's Richard Dimbleby's radio reports from Belsen concentration camp brought the horrors of the Holocaust to the world. Television journalists like Dan Rather and photographers such as Don McCullen showed America the brutal reality of Vietnam, and reporters from the Washington Post's Metro desk forced a presidential resignation over Watergate. As journalism became more influential, so politicians battled to control it. Journalism was always about power over information, holding power to account or providing propaganda. It claimed to make and break careers, swing elections and even start wars. It's produced heroes who have revealed scandals such as systematic child abuse by paedophile priests. It's also created monsters who ruined lives and broke the law, such as the journalists who hacked into people's phones. Now it's all changing again. Automatic software programs are writing bot journalism. Citizens broadcast on their phones. Algorithms created by huge technology companies shape the flow of news as people like or retweet the facts and opinions they want to share. That's meant an explosion of content, a tidal wave of information, much of it false, furious and fractious. People are confused about what to trust, uncertain what is true, fearful of the anger, conflict and bias they find online. We're in an age when populist leaders and shadowy interest groups use the cliché fake news to attack journalists and deliberately mislead the public. So why did journalism fail to see all this coming? Do we even need journalists anymore? Fake news is actually good news for trustworthy, reliable journalism. It's a chance for the news media to show why they're needed, to sort out the truth from lies and speak for the citizen. The digital age is a chance for journalism to reinvent itself with new tools such as virtual reality or artificial intelligence. The internet provides massive competition for the mainstream media, but it also offers pathways to new business models such as membership, subscription and collaboration. Most of all, it offers an opportunity for journalism to get back in touch, to be more diverse, relevant and engaging. In a social world where emotions and values drive our communications, journalism needs to rediscover the human touch and also to get back some key traditional ideals, to be reliable, responsible and to tell the stories that help to explain our complicated and often frightening world.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to receive notifications for new videos. See you again soon.
What makes journalism ethical or unethical? Most people agree that the news should be accurate, thorough and responsible. Journalists should do the research needed to contextualise events, consider many sides of an issue and avoid unnecessary harm to sources or audiences. But do these ethics depend purely on the moral fortitude of individual journalists? Or are journalistic ethics a product of larger incentives at play? The truth is that many journalists work in systems that discourage them from reporting ethically. Imagine two towns, Harmonia and Discordia. In Harmonia, news consumers create an incentive for ethical journalism because they're willing to pay for reliable information that helps improve their lives. Harmonians think of being informed as a right and responsibility of citizenship, like voting. They support regulations that defend news in the public interest while protecting press freedom from government overreach. In Discordia, consumers expect news to be free of charge and favour sensationalism and juicy gossip. Journalists earn money by attracting the public's attention with shocking stories, accurate or not, and then selling that attention to advertisers. Audiences take press freedom for granted and don't question the political and economic influences over the news they consume. In Harmonia, media outlets compete for grant support from non-profits. Legal regulations encourage local ownership and locally focused content. This combination of funding and sensible regulation allows newsrooms to produce thoroughly investigated stories that deal with issues important to their audiences. In Discordia, news organisations sink or swim in a cutthroat market. Unregulated conglomerates buy up smaller outlets and syndicate stories across them, leading to homogeneous, decontextualised news. In Discordia's media deserts, consumers find no coverage at all of local issues. In Harmonia, journalists keep relationships with the community because they need loyal, paying customers and grant support from organisations concerned with public welfare. This system promotes responsible reporting. News organisations put public interest and the safety of their sources above stockholder profits. In Discordia, conglomerates cut costs by laying off staff, stripping them down to skeleton crews. Editors are forced to take journalists off important but unprofitable stories. Journalists do everything: write stories, shoot video, record audio, edit their own work. They are left without time to consider how they're putting sources at risk or affecting audiences. In Harmonia, where quality rules over quantity, journalists have time to report stories deeply and consider their many sides. In Discordia, speed reigns over accuracy. Journalists don't have time to investigate beyond their initial assumptions and biases. In Harmonia, a system has been set in motion in which journalists earn the trust of their audiences by reporting accurately, thoroughly and responsibly. In Discordia, consumers lose trust in professional journalism and instead rely on peddlers of gossip, conspiracy theories and political disinformation. Which town would you rather live in? If you answered Harmonia, you share the responsibility to maintain a system that sustains ethical journalism. You can join in media activism, encourage public and non-profit spending to support the free press, and be a discerning consumer. That means avoiding clickbait and, if you can afford it, paying for high-quality local journalism.
Right now, press freedom is an illusion, and we are forced to test it with every story because there's a gun pointed at you. And if you step outside the lines, you get targeted.
Rappler, your articles are ripe with innuendos and pregnant with falsity.
The greatest threat to this country is the entire government, and the chief conductor of the attacks is President Duterte himself.
Ikaw, ABS-CBN, I will see to it that you're out.
The press and the government have never gotten along, no matter which president that is. We make each other's lives difficult because it is our job to check on you.
It is a fraught environment. This is also morally and psychologically complicated and challenging for individual journalists and for news organizations as well.
So I think press freedom in the Philippines right now is broken.
In 2019, arrested twice in 5 weeks, 8 criminal cases. The maximum penalty of all of these is almost 100 years in prison.
In the beginning, media were the gatekeepers of information. I'm Karen Davila giving you the head start for the day. And social media sounded like a good thing until it was weaponized to a certain agenda.
Gamitin po natin ang Facebook!
And then the elections came, 2016, and then we saw that it was going to be a problem for us. And it was just vitriol thrown all over.
These are the 2 main groups and leaders that we started calling out in 2016. Rodrigo Duterte, and the other man is a young gentleman, Mark Zuckerberg, and Facebook. Facebook, for example, is a platform where lies laced with anger and hate spread faster and further than facts.
I would wake up to hundreds of hate messages every day.
I am just one of the many journalists that have been a victim of trolling. Reputation destroyed, reputation maligned. When journalists do interviews, you make the effort to study, prepare, and contextualize information that goes out into the public. When it goes out into Facebook, it's used as clickbait. It's chopped into different pieces and used by different political parties or different parties for their own agenda, either to push a narrative or to push a political candidate. And I'm seeing it now as we move towards the elections.
These are psychological attacks. It's a new weapon against journalists.
They launch an orchestrated campaign to tear apart media's reputation and the reputation of journalists. By what? Hurling around terms like prostitutes, bayaran, dilawan, komunista, everything.
Ano po yung bagong instruction?
Ang allowed lang po sa inyo, ma'am, hanggang NEP lang po. Yun na.
Hanggang NEP?
Yes, ma'am.
So hindi ako pwede mag-cover smite mamaya sa Malacanang? Ganun po ba yun?
NEP lang po, ma'am. Yun lang po ang uling instruction po.
Right after the ban, I was more of angry because I felt that there were so many violations that happened, that there was no forewarning, nobody explained sufficiently the grounds for why I was banned. I would get like Twitter tags where people would threaten me with rape. So what the ban did was force me to be more resourceful and more creative in how I report. So the fact that I'm still able to report pretty closely the events in Malacanang is vindicating in a way, and it also makes me feel that it can be done and it shouldn't be an excuse to stop doing your job.
It's often said that they want a free press, but do they want a free press enough? Even if they don't want what a free press is saying, will you protect a free press even if the free press is saying something that goes against your own interest? The interest of a free press is the truth. And as I've said, it's not always perfect.
What we do is We struggle against fear. We work through fear. We live through fear. We live in fear. But we transcend fear every day.
This is ABS-CBN Corporation, Channel 2, in the service of the Filipino. Now signing off.
It was confused silence, but you could also feel the anger. So it just felt like people were milling around, whispering in hushed tones, not admitting that we were going dark.
We'll go to NBI.
What's happening to Rapper, what's happening to The Inquirer, what's happening to ABS-CBN are no longer isolated incidents. So we're not making this up in our heads. The threat, the blow, and the jubilation are all out on record.
It sends shivers down our spine. And if this is not something that affects us, and we say so, we would be lying.
I think, frankly, the hardest effect on media networks that are open is self-censorship. And that's tragic.
There's already a feeling of fear in everyone that they're gonna check themselves. Oh, if I write this headline in this way, maybe I will get fired. So just that small needling doubt in a reporter's mind, for me already means he's not free.
Right now, after we push it out there, we publish something, we post something, we're just on the edge of our seats, waiting for reactions that are maybe a little violent or maybe a little disproportionate, a lot disproportionate, and we do not deserve that.
The Philippine media, I believe, will only be ready for it if our institutions are so strong that it feels it's protected under the democratic space. As long as media feels it's dependent on who sits in Malacanang, it will always be under threat.
Sabi niyo po, you cannot be a president if you cannot kill. Papatay ba kayo kung kayo'y Pangulo?
It's not the actual. Takot kang mamatay, takot kang pumatay, huwag kang magpresidente.
Journalists should be, frankly, fearless in doing their jobs and yet be able to self-reflect that they're doing it properly with the right intentions.
Hanggat hindi pa nabubuksan ang daan papunta rito sa mga isolated na barangay ng bayan ng Bagao, ito ang pinaka-lifeline nila. Ito lang ang natatanging pinagkukunan nila ngayon ng pagkain.
I think it's time to double down and fight. It's time to bring out the bravest stories that we can come up with. The most critical, incisive, precise journalism that we can.
Keep on crying out, keep on calling out, to keep on demanding. When people speak as a crowd, speak as a chorus, we are able to bring their message out there.
It's important to push back because if you don't, people will think the entire media can be manipulated and can be intimidated.
To back off, to keep quiet, to keep silent, is to turn this country into a giant graveyard where only the mighty and the powerful and the corrupt will rule the earth.
And if Filipino journalists, if we don't find our way to finding strength together, we will be knocked off one by one. So we will hold the line. That's what it requires.